All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to our series Decoded AI and Treasury. I'm Emily Flake from the Treasury4 marketing team, and I'll be your moderator today. We are so glad to have you in today's session, Secure by Design, the AI governance architecture behind Treasury4. Just a few housekeeping items before we officially kick it off. Um, this is going to be recorded and it is going to be available on demand after the event as well. If you experience any tech issues, try refreshing or rejoining the session, and just make sure to stay until the end because we're going to have some fun prizes to give away before the Q&A actually kicks off, and then we're going to also go through some upcoming sessions as well. And just to quickly go through today's agenda, I'm gonna hand it off for some introductions for Rick and Dylan to introduce themselves, and then they're gonna go through 20 years of shifts where AI lives at Treasury4, architecture and permissions, audit and logging, and then we're gonna do our very fun prize portal. We're gonna be doing some Q&A, and then we're gonna go over what's next to come in the series. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to our lovely speakers today, Rick Moore and Dylan.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is Rick Moore. I'm one of the cloud operations architects here at Treasury4. I've been an IT professional for over 20 years on the server side and networking side, managing cloud infrastructure and data centers. I'm glad to be with you all today.
And hi, everyone. I'm Dylan Pegoraro, IT Director at Treasury4. Yeah, thanks for your time. I've almost a compliment to Rick. I've been in IT for about 25 years, even pushing 30 now. And uh, I think it's really interesting to talk about AI today because I've seen this whole arc of technology going back even to when I first started learning BASIC in the 80s, if anyone remembers that, and then uh, took the very traditional path of going through professional kitchens and became a chef for a while before getting back into IT. So note there, when we get to Q&A, I'm happy to talk about polenta recipes as much as SOC 2. Um, Everything's fair game there. But uh, one thing that I found exciting talking about AI today was that um, seeing how the technology has shifted from the mid to late 90s, being on shift during December 31st, 1999 for that Y2K thing, all the way up to how technology has changed today with AI. It's just been very exciting. So looking forward to talking.
Yeah, and we're hoping to give you both sides of that coin, Dylan's side from the devices and user side, and then my perspective from server and infrastructure side when we talk about the MCP today. So we can jump into the next slide, Emily.
Okay, so here we're going to start out with a poll, which I'm going to launch right now. And the poll question is, what is your trust level with AI? 1, I don't trust it at all. 2, I'll use it, but I verify everything. 3, I trust it for low stakes tasks. 4, I trust it for most of my work. Or 5, I trust it enough to let it act utmost. So I'm going to give it a second here for a couple people to participate. It looks like we're at 78% participation, so I'll give it a couple more seconds here, and then I'll go ahead and share the results.
And I think it seems like the Wild West to to a lot of folks when they read about AI every day in the news. But we're
Yeah.
here to assure you that we're not out like cowboys. We're putting down the rigor and the discipline that we've done for 20 years on all of our platforms that we've managed.
Okay, perfect. And I just shared the results. Dylan and Rick, are you able to see that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, thanks everyone for voting. Just an interesting benchmark of where your confidence is with AI today.
Yeah, it's looking like the majority's at a 3 for I trust it for low stakes tasks. And then the second highest was a 2. I'll use it, but I verify everything.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that's
Mhm.
a good place to be for our conversation today for sure.
Exactly.
And wherever you find yourself on that poll, we designed the system the same that was just for our conversation today to see where everyone is at. Um, so, like we said earlier, um, leaning on our experience from different parts of IT and managing systems. We started out on-prem managing data centers, the racks in the room, the equipment we own, that moved into cloud. Um, Virtual machines became containers. What hasn't changed in any of this is that the customers, their users expect things to continually get faster, to have more capabilities and be secure all at once. The technology keeps moving, but the discipline of those three things, speed, security, and features, that's the discipline that we want to coexist and that we designed into the system. Um, there was a lot of great discussion in the first two sessions on, AI usage and context and, deterministic versus probabilistic outcomes. And we gave good examples on what the MCP is and showed how that works. And, we want to show you that um, we're treating it the same as all of the rest of the system that we've built and managed. The uh, and then the shift really today that is to AI is definitely been the biggest one we've seen in our careers, and but we're staying grounded and continuing to do what we've done before. Um, the cognitive load is higher using AI. Ablash mentioned
Mhm.
in previous
Yeah.
calls, and we're all expected to do more with less, and that's what we're showing here today. Um,
Yeah, exactly, Rick. I would echo those. And this is the nicest way to say that Rick and I are old and we've been in the industry for a long time. But
Try not to say
um,
old.
maybe old. We're seasoned veterans. But yeah, if you go back to all the arc that Rick shows here, there's a lot in between. We could throw even like COVID and remote work in there. But um, the security, uh, the security really needs to stay the same. So we've seen a lot of technologies come, some went, some changed, some evolved. But things like least privilege, securing the perimeter, especially as we got into remote work, securing your identity became more and more important. Audit logging, encryption at rest and in transit, defense in depth, all of those things have stayed consistent through all of these changes. They've changed form for sure. If we go back to the on-prem scenario, typically you would think of your network perimeter or your firewall as really your moat. But as everyone expanded into cloud, remote work, cloud infrastructure, the identity became the firewall, right? So we see more and more phishing for that reason. So all of these concepts and all of these security concepts have stayed the same. Um, that's what we apply to AI, and that's what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, we like to think we've always controlled the door. We see, who goes in and who leaves, and hopefully what's going on while they're working. Um, so yeah, we can go to the next slide. Whether it was a file on a network share or the Treasury4 platform now, we're still controlling the access, monitoring the access, and providing applying best practices to the system through the entire stack. So I'll talk about how AI lives today in our system in four places, two customer facing, two internal. So one is our in-app AI-assisted transaction categorization rules. So that was, our first AI application into this Treasury4 platform. It was purpose-built. It runs inside your customer environment. The data never leaves your customer environment. It generates suggestions. You approve suggestions, and they're codified into the system. That's been in production for quite some time now. From there, we built on internal capabilities like automated security scans. So we've got our entire stack logging, and we've got constant scanning of those logs, looking for anomalies. We're looking at code for vulnerability, risks. We're resolving those risks. We're constantly prioritizing based on a security posture. And our development is governed. The use of AI is governed. Our engineering team adopted really like a corporate knowledge base of AI skills that we all share and we build on, and they're immediately available for the whole team to use. Our development process, although it's been, you know, supercharged with AI, it's the same exact process it was before AI showed up. All code is human approved by someone who did not make that code. It's tested before it goes through our environments, dev test, and eventually to prod. Um, and um, and then, so those are the two foundational internal AI use cases we've got going today. And then now the MCP. So, the next customer-facing piece of AI that we're bringing to our customers, you're bringing your AI agent. You're not just getting one integration, you're getting many, you're getting access to the entire platform. And it's your identity, it's your login. The MCP adopts your roles, and the AI, your AI agent, acts as you. We can go to the next slide, Emily. So this is the same view of the previous slide, just a little differently, and I wanted to focus on a couple things. So the foundational pieces, the automated security scanning and the governed development and how we use AI underpins the customer-facing pieces. So in the previous sessions, you saw the MCP server in action. We hinted at Ask Eddie, which would be the in-app interface to the MCP server rather than you bringing your own agent and plugging it in. But I also wanted to point out that the MCP protocol was announced by Anthropic in November 2024. We went live with our MCP server in March. So 16 months, depending on how you look at it, super fast, or, we wanted to take the time, understand how it would interact with our platform. And so that's what we did. We're using it first. We like to say we drink our own champagne, and that's what we've been doing. The MCP server is not a third-party product. It's not something we bolted on. It was, in our perspective, we've been managing dozens of APIs, hundreds of endpoints from the inception of the system, and this is another version of that, and we're applying all the same discipline. We're logging everything. It passes through the same gateway that all of your user traffic passes through now. It is integral in our system. It's not second thought or another system that interacts with ours. We can go on to the next slide, I think, Emily. So Dylan's going to talk about the design, the risks we've designed against, and what we're focusing on internally.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. These are 6 well-known AI risks. Not comprehensive, but just highlighting some well-known ones. And I actually spent some quality time with all 6 of these yesterday, making sure that I tested against all of them before the presentation. Um, so I don't necessarily want to go over all these in detail, but there's some that really jumped out at me, especially injection resistant. So you'll see where it's possible with AI to inject either poems or certain phrases where attackers can use that to uh, exfiltrate data or to have the AI perform things that it shouldn't be doing. So we make it injection resistant. Another one is short-lived credentials. That's pretty important because you don't want those credentials to be available to access your data for very long. So if you have a valid login, those tokens stay refreshed, but they don't last very long. Another big one is roles and permissions. So if you think about your AI is interacting basically as you. So all the roles and permissions that your account has, your AI inherits that and can't go outside of that. So that's the privilege containment. It's not a separate login. It's not a separate part of your user account per se. It is completely coordinated with your account. And then another important one I wanted to talk about was architectural separation. And where I thought this one was interesting is this really pertains to the entire Treasury4 platform. So all customer data, whether it be a database, whether it be maybe a credential for your account, to get into maybe a bank to get your transaction detail, a storage location for any of your data. All of your customer data is isolated from every other customer. There is no shared resource amongst with your customer data. And so that was a design decision going into the entire platform. And as Rick was describing, we added AI later in our journey. But the important part of that is AI inherits that architectural separation that had already built into the system. So it cannot cross those boundaries into other customers' data because that architectural separation has been built from the beginning. Let's see. So yeah, you can go on to the next slide there. So SSO this is one of my favorite topics, like especially going back to the beginning when we were talking about identity. So SSO is your control plane. This is if your company chooses to use it, and we support all the major identity providers, Microsoft, Okta, Google. If your company is using SSO, that's your control gate to get into the system, and that includes AI access. So all of the security, all of the decisions that your security group and your IT team has made. For example, Microsoft Entra uses things called conditional access policies for SSO. All of those things apply to your normal login and therefore access to your for your AI. So conditional access policies can include things like preventing impossible travel, which means maybe it detected that you logged in from one location, but then within an unreasonable amount of time, you logged in from a different physical location, just really an impossible travel. So those are the kind of things that your teams are already doing to protect your identity. And those we can then benefit from that getting access to your treasury data. So one way one way that I think about SSO is something that a Microsoft security expert said years ago, and it stuck with me ever since. And like this one kind of simple sentence has always stuck with me about identity. And it's that if you think about an attacker, why break in when you can log in? And if you think about the importance of that statement, that really underpins the importance of protecting your identity. So why break in? Why would the attacker spend all the time to maybe figure out how to get through your firewall or get through your web server or all the different ways to get to your infrastructure, if they can send a million phishing messages and try to get one that works, then they have the username and password, right? Then they can log in. It's just from an I hate to say this, but from an operational efficiency standpoint, the logging in is a much simpler path to your data. So I'm sure all of us on the call see phishing every day. The volume never ceases to go or never slows down, but that's why they're doing that. So the importance of identity is right there with SSO. So also key concepts, SSO is all about authentication or making sure that your user identity is valid. And then authorization is then the second part. So you'll hear an acronym RBAC or role-based access control. That is contained within the Treasury4 system. So your roles, meaning your permissions, can be defined by your company's administrator. You can work with the customer success team, but if you think about those two parts, authentication, ideally it's through SSO because that's where you can benefit from the full weight of your company's security posture into the roles and permissions that you can have within the system. So then the natural then progression is, okay, if your user is assigned certain roles and permissions, that applies to your AI as well. So the AI behaves with the same roles and permissions that your normal account does. All right, we can go to the next slide. So I also manage compliance at Treasury4, and so these auditor kind of questions I can really empathize with because I am asked the same questions. So one thing about logging that I thought was important to draw attention to was uh, all of the auditing and logging happens within the system that you can provide. So all the AI actions, what it did, where it came from, um, all of those, what I would call metadata to the calls is audited so that that can be provided later if needed. Um, but there's also a fine line there too. There's having enough information logged and audited to be important for maybe an auditor, maybe for an investigation on your side, things like that. But there also needs to be a fine line about the privacy side. So when you're using an MCP, the content of the messages that you're sending is not logged on our side. And that's the important barrier between security and privacy is all of that information going back and forth with your MCP, with your AI tool is going back to your system. And we do not log those sessions or the information within those sessions. So that's kind of a segue into what Rick will talk about in number 4. But first, I'll hand it over for number 3 here and kind of back to the infrastructure side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So, still building on the theme of the perimeter's changing, but the discipline doesn't. So pre-AI, all of our systems, so all of your databases, all of your key vaults, your storage, reporting databases, the entry through the web application firewall, that's all logged into something called log analytics. You can think of that like a SQL server for logs. It parses it and gives you the ability to query. Now, we have had this, and what it brings into the picture is, again, kind of supercharging what we can do with it. Finding patterns that, humans or couldn't find easily before, setting up rules similar to what we're doing in Treasury4, but we're just doing it on a different object. You know, the user parameter or the certificate expiration date, we can see all of those things much easier and just have a very full picture of the system. We can do root cause analysis faster than we ever could before. We can trace, we can cross correlate. We can see someone enter the system. We can see, where they navigated and determine, if there's a problem, how to fix it, and get that into the development cycle fast. Um, the logging can't be disabled. So, of course, we're all human. If someone were to click off a log, we have everything as code. It runs in a pipeline. Those would be reapplied. So, you know, pretty much everything we have at T4 is codified and, um, uh, you know, helps us keep from drifting configurations and just really apply a level of consistency um, that I haven't seen anywhere else. Um, we can go to the next slide. So here is kind of just showing the data boundary. So the picture is you are able to use the user interface as yourself, and now your agent can connect to the MCP and use the system through your guidance. So what do we see? The audit trail. So, we see all the tool calls, the operations, the parameters, the timing. We see who's taking action. Um, we see timestamps and some session information. What we don't see is your prompts, the data that's going back and forth from your AI, your session to your AI provider. So that's a distinction we want to make. You're bringing your AI tool and connecting it to our system. So at that point, you have two license agreements, your AI client and Treasury4. Um, um, for those of you who don't have your own AI client, we are going to have that functionality available through Ask Eddie, where you'd be using our AI client at that point, which we would log more at that point. But we just wanted to show, what we're looking at, kind of frame how we go about managing, administering, securing the MCP server, and really show the nuances of bringing this additional capability, but also show the similarities that are there, whether the MCP is part of Treasury4 or not. Um, I think we can go on to the next slide.
All right, thanks, Rick. So I'd go back to the something I mentioned a few slides ago about architectural separation and how that relates to SOC 2. Treasury 4 became SOC 2 Type 2 about, let's see, 3 years ago. So pretty early on in our company's history. And that was important to all of us at the beginning to make sure that we were following good enterprise patterns from the very beginning. Rick, it's not just Rick and I, we have other people on the team that have enterprise experience, and we really wanted to not just bring it to Treasury 4, but also have a third party validate that as well. So Type 2 showed that pretty early on. We've had that for several years. And if we go back to the architectural separation, that was an important design decision that really helped with SOC 2 also, keeping all customer data separate. Also, it's mapped to our code. So all the controls in SOC 2, we see that with a real-time integrations that we have with our core systems. For example, our coding system, our infrastructure, our corporate IT systems, and others. And those are actually integrated in with our SOC program, so that at any time we can see a point in time state of our compliance posture. And I think that's an important distinction and a different viewpoint about compliance is on any given day, you need to know where you are. It's not enough to know where you are during the audit window. That may be a period of time. It may be 3 months, 6 months for different companies. And there's different reasons for those, of course, but what we've chosen to do is just to have a continual audit window where there's no behavioral change depending on the time of the year. We're always in the window. So we need to make sure all of the controls are available and we know where we stand on all of those on any given day. And that's why it's important to map the things like we see with the controls. So this is where things like infrastructure as code become more important. You can prove and you can show that infrastructure is deployed in a repeatable way, and that repeatable process can be tested and validated. Our policies are in code, so you can prove that policies are being applied, what they're being applied to, how they're being applied, because we take it down to the code level. You see Terraform managed diagnostic settings there in the card. That's about making sure that the entire stack and the platform, all the way from the code that writes the platform to code that makes a new database or code that enforces a new policy, is literally in code. It's not just a concept, it's running in code so that you can prove that it's enforced and that it's applied to the different customer environments. Along those lines, actually, of the evidence where it's continuous, not annual. If you go to security.treasury4.com, that's actually a real-time view of our compliance tool and what it's showing that day. So you can see levels of controls, the state of the control, all on that screen, all on that page at any time too. And SOC 2s are available under NDA. We also have a SOC 3 that can be shared. And along those lines, we're also at the final stages of our SOC 1 verification with our auditor. So all of the evidence is with our auditor right now, and we're waiting for that final report. So very soon we'll be able to talk about a SOC 1 as well. All right, Emily, we can go to the next one. All right, so this is where we were thinking, okay, we've talked a lot about different concepts, some background, different parts of not just AI, but really we wanted to talk about the entire ecosystem, the entire platform, and how AI is a member of that ecosystem and how it's not a separate thing. It's not a separate identity. It's not part of a separate environment. It's within the background and within the context of the infrastructure that Rick and I have described. So one thing that we thought could be helpful is if we go back to the beginning of the presentation and we talked about some of the well-known security principles, protecting identity, defense in depth, all those traditional security pillars. One thing that's also very helpful to do is a periodic security review or a periodic role review. So this is a good time to do that. It's always a good place to start. So the reason we bring that up with AI is we want to make sure that you're starting from a good spot. And this isn't really even specific to AI. This is just a good thing to do every once in a while is for security hygiene is maybe once a quarter, look at your users, look at the roles they have assigned, make sure that they're still valid, make sure that maybe a job didn't change and the role should be adjusted with the new responsibilities. This ties right back to SSO, right? Because one of the huge values of SSO is if a person leaves your company for whatever reason, and your connection is SSO enabled, they lose access to all of the SSO connected apps immediately. That's a critical part for compliance, security, your company's protection. Now, while it's convenient for everyone to use SSO, I can't overstate the value of the termination scenario or just the person left for whatever reason scenario. Their access to Treasury4 or any other SSO app is cut off at that time. So pulling back now, that's more for the situation where they leave. But what happens before they leave? Every quarter really, or whatever fits your schedule, all of those roles and permissions should be reviewed too. And that's just a good, secure foundation to then start adding more features like MCP connections. And if you're interested in that, we'd be happy to talk about that as well with our customer success team.
Yeah, I think both of us are, well aware that our jobs have changed dramatically with the, you know, AI coming on the scene. And like you heard in previous sessions, we're jumping in and with both feet and learning and sharing and practicing. Um,
Yeah.
you know, the MCP increases your reach to your data, and you'll see the speed at which you can do things. And so having that security posture review and knowing that you have the the guardrails up is a good, good peace of mind to start using the MCP. I think with that, we could probably do some prizes.
Yeah, sounds like prize time.
Yes, it is. Perfect. Thank you both so much.
Sure.
Before we get into Q&A, as we said, we're going to be doing a really quick giveaway. We have some very, very fun prizes. I'm just going to stop my screen share for one moment so I can get that up. But meanwhile, just go ahead and keep your eye on the screen because I'm going to share mine in just a moment. But while I get that up, I'll just explain really quick how that's going to work. We're going to have basically two winners. You're going to be seeing four prizes, four portals, and then we're going to be picking two winners, and you have to be live, of course, to be one of the lucky winners of the portal game. And while I get my screen up in just a moment here. Give me one more second. All right, perfect. I'm gonna reshare my screen. And here we go. Does everyone, Dylan and Rick, can you guys see my screen okay? It
Yeah.
should be
Look,
having the
looks great.
portals up. Okay, perfect. So yes, as I was saying, you're looking at four mystery portals on my screen, and each one is hiding a different prize. We are picking two winners today, one at a time, completely at random. And like I said again, only attendees who joined live are eligible. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first winner. And if you see your name up on the screen, uh, go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like me to open for your prize. Okay, our first winner is Darlene. Darlene, if you can go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like me to open. Okay, I see three. All right, Darlene, I'm gonna go ahead and pick portal number three. And that is a UE boom. It's a waterproof speaker. So, Darlene, congratulations on your new UE boom. It's going to be a great item to use in the summertime now. I actually personally have one and I love it. So, congratulations, Darlene. I'll go ahead and send you an email after this webinar, and I'll go ahead and help you get situated with your new prize. And now I'm going to go ahead and pick our second and last winner. So go ahead and keep your eye on the screen as well. Oops, I have to shuffle first. Okay. Now I'm picking. Okay, Kelly. Kelly Cosgrove. If you can go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like me to open. Two. Okay, perfect. I see you want me to open portal number two. And that is another UE boom. So congratulations. You both got UE boom. Um, I'll go ahead and follow up with you guys on yes, double boom. I love that. I'll go ahead and follow up with both of you on getting situated with your new prizes. So congratulations. And now I'm gonna go ahead and reshare my screen so we can go ahead and dive into some more Q&A questions. In the meanwhile, I already have a question that has popped up for Dylan and Rick. Does my Treasury data get sent to OpenAI or Anthropic?
So yeah, that's a great question. So it it gets sent based off your license. So when Rick was talking before about your license agreement, it's kind of a bring your own AI, for example. So this is why it's important to have a approved AI tool at your company, because there are business agreements in place for business plans, typically business, pro, enterprise plans like that. With OpenAI and Anthropic, they both have business plans that have agreements that they will not use your data to train, for example. And so the answer to that question is yes with the MCP, and it's going through your AI. You're bringing your AI to the MCP, so that's who your agreement is with.
Yeah, and
Also,
that
sorry, Rick, just a real important distinction about that's a great question about uh, the difference between free tools and business approved tools. You know, there may not be the privacy restrictions on free tools that you would have with a business tool. So, but you were going to say, Rick.
I said I was going to say, so if we think back, I don't know if everyone saw the first session, but we talked a lot about context. So, what you're providing in the session, it's going back and forth every turn. So, that's a key thing to remember. So,
Mhm.
yeah, if you were doing this outside of Treasury 4, if you had a spreadsheet of data and you're downloading it back and forth and copy pasting, you know, using the MCP is just a better hygiene. You're not creating those artifacts that you're copying, pasting, could be, landing somewhere outside of your, secure corporate perimeter. So it's definitely a good question. It's important to understand how the context works.
Mhm.
So good question.
And maybe we could talk about context too for a minute since it came up. We've we've talked about how you can use the MCP with Treasury 4, but even like what Rick was talking about with earlier presentations where Avalash was talking about context and context management. That's where you can really improve. Uh, that's where you can really improve the results of using an MCP. And this isn't specific to Treasury 4. This is just using an MCP in general. Things like a basic understanding of how tokens work with MCPs, how to manage your context, how to not maybe pollute your context or bringing in different topics that aren't necessarily related. Understanding that there is a window that you need to operate in token wise with whatever tool that you bring. Um, so those are just general MCP best practices. It's a whole new world, as you know, Rick and I and the team have discovered the last year or so. But becoming better at using MCPs in general is really time well spent because it's just a way to improve the quality of what you get from any MCP connection, not just ours. I see another question. Is there a preferred AI model? We're agnostic as far as what model you bring. We personally use the kind of the standard frontier models that are in the market today from Anthropic and OpenAI. Personally, and with our business accounts too. So those are the ones that we've focused on.
And the MCP protocol itself was created by Anthropic, and so it's
Yeah.
based on how the companies are adopting the protocol.
Looks like we have two more in the chat box, guys. What is the key for consistency of results from prompting and AI? Is it agentic AI? The trust is low on my team because we can all put in the same prompt and generate different
Mm,
results.
Yeah, absolutely. We see the same thing here.
yeah.
I guess it comes back to that understanding of deterministic and probabilistic, and you know, the first answer you get may not always be the best, and you need to make sure it's seeing the context or the data that if you're referring to analyzing numbers, that they're looking at the same sources, um, and I guess it depends on what the object is that you're having the AI analyze. So, whether it's
Hmm.
code, in that case, your agent would be looking at the same exact file as someone else. So there shouldn't be, I mean, there's going to be differences in, I think, in implementation, an approach, and a plan. But I think if you break those things down separately, like this is the plan, this is the expected output, okay, we've now decided on the plan. Now we go into action. Here's the goals of those actions. I think you're going to get more consistency if you take those steps.
Yeah, I agree. And I would just add that it's similar to just best practices with context management. For example, don't be afraid to clear, like /clear. I'm using Claude in this example. Don't be afraid to what I call fire your agent. If you're finding that it's kind of veering all over the place, it might be a result of context that's been mixed up with different topics. So, for example, if you do clear, you start on a known good empty window and then you start working on it. But that can impact that too. Um, yeah, so there's a question also about how we protect and persist unstructured data. So um, although I'm always hesitant to talk about price, I'm not in sales. But the price is not impacted by this. And so unstructured data could be files that we receive maybe from a banking partner. That would be in your storage accounts, your storage locations that go back to what I was saying before about that all of your customer data, whether it's structured, unstructured, a credential maybe for your banking partner. Anything related to your data is always isolated from every other customer. You get your own location in the data. You get your own database. You get your own storage, things like that. So that's part of the platform, and that does not impact the price.
And that's a good point. So, I mean, we would only store structured data in the database, unstructured in file storage, and secrets and certificates in a key vault. I don't think there's much other data we
Right.
would have.
And there's a great tip from Ty, one of our resident AI experts, about a tip there as well in the chat.
I guess for consistency's sake, when using the MCP can only do what the system can already do. So it's not going to be able to write unstructured data into the system. It can only use the APIs and follows you know, the data controls and accuracy checks that we have built in. So the AI would never be able to just create a new table in a database inside of the system. We do have reporting capabilities that do touch on that, but not, inside the core system.
Another question I have here, does AI usage create any new compliance obligations for us?
Well, it's a oh, go
Sure.
ahead. I was just hoping you would take it, Rick. No. Um, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because um, it's another avenue to your data. So it has to be protected, it has to be logged, it has to be audited. The infrastructure that it's running on needs to be in that same environment. So that's actually a great segue to what I was mentioning earlier about we don't we can't treat AI as a separate tool or a separate ecosystem. It has to be living within our own standard, audited, compliant infrastructure and platform. It can't be an outlier, nor can really any technology. Um, but we're also seeing AI. I believe there's one for ISO now. So we're seeing AI start to hit other compliance um, like ISO. So it compliance is an interesting topic by itself because it changes every day. All of our states in the U.S. Treat it a little bit differently at different rates, and they focus on different things. So the answer to that question is it changes, but fundamentally, it's the same answer of it has to be secure, it has to be compliant, it has to be audited.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Another question. Nope, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, Emily.
Another question I see here is our data used to train AI models?
No, no. So if you look at um, this goes back to the business agreement that you have with bringing your own AI. So whether you're bringing OpenAI to the table or Anthropic or any other MCP compatible model, that's where the criticality of the business agreement that your company has with those providers is key. Is one of the very important slider bars. If you, I'm just picking Anthropic in this case, if you have a Claude Teams account, there's a slider bar that says that your data will not be shared. It's a very important slider bar. You typically do not see those levels of control in consumer or free versions. So to shorter answer is that should absolutely be part of your business agreement with your AI provider.
Perfect, thank you. Another question I see here. Can we configure which AI features our users have access to?
You can configure what parts of the system they have access to, and then the AI adopts
Mhm.
your role. So it's would be the same thing. It's your identity that the AI is using.
Right. So if you don't want them to have access to the MCP, then you would just not give them the MCP role, for example. Um,
Yeah, right now it's either on or off, and then we have two options, read only or read write. But it could also be off. And then any of the capabilities, once it is enabled, is controlled through existing permissions and roles assigned in the system already. And that's why we mentioned, kind of next steps would be reviewing those security groups, roles, permissions, and, having that level of comfort, uh, because the MCP would supercharge those abilities.
Perfect, thank
it,
you. Oh, sorry, did you want to? I keep cutting you off,
yeah,
Dylan.
no, you're fine. You're fine. I was just going to point out another great tip from Ty. One thing that can help with repeatability and consistency is skills. And so, Ryan had a great point about, hey, it's really hard to trust what I'm seeing if the results are inconsistent. Totally fair statement. Agree. Um, so I would even go back to something that Ablash had mentioned before in the keynote is you're dealing with a brilliant thing and sometimes a thing that it struggles. And so it's just a part of AI technology. And the point about inconsistency is very valid for sure. But what Ty's pointing out is that skills can really help you there because skills can give that same prompt and skills can be shared amongst your team too. So you can all kind of start from the same prompt with from the same start.
Yeah, you can kind of think of skills almost like a macro in Excel.
Mm.
This the skill is a combination of when to use it, and then when you do use it, this is exactly what you do. Like when I see this situation or when I ask for this, run this macro, and then it does the exact same thing each time. And that's the probabilistic versus the deterministic concepts we talked about in previous sessions.
But I think with that, with the minutes we have left, I just want to also make sure that you guys know what is coming up next on our Decoded series. Our next session is going to be June 4th on data-rich payments with our very own Ed Berry. We have Tony Clark from Swift and Susan Meyer from the Clearinghouse. We also have another session coming up on June 24th as well with Darren Felix from Redis. If you are enrolled in this series, you should have received a Zoom calendar invite. And if you are maybe newer to the series, feel free to register for all upcoming sessions with the link I'm going to send right now into the chat. So I just dropped that link in now, so go ahead and grab that. And I believe that brings us to the end of today's session. When the webinar does close, you will see a short survey pop up. We would really appreciate you taking 30 seconds to complete that. It just helps us make sure we are building sessions that are valuable for Treasury teams. And then I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Rick and Dylan for walking us through all this amazing architecture today. And thank you all for being here. Recording will be available on demand shortly after today's session for attendees, and we will send that link out. Any final thoughts before we close out, Rick or Dylan?
Um,
I just appreciate everyone's time. It's a topic that changes almost every day now, and the pace of the technology changing. I mean, just look at Q1 of 2026. It's just I've never seen so many new features come out. So thanks for your attention and interest.
yeah, thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you guys. We hope to see you on June 4th for our next Decoded session. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and congrats again to Darlene and Kelly. I'll be reaching out to you very, very shortly. And yeah, have a great rest of your Tuesday, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.